Welcome to Circles of Synergy podcast. Today we are going to be talking about emotions and how we reclaim our strength. Today I have two special guests with me who are experts in this field. I have what I call the twins. I have Latesha Van, which is to your far right, and I have LaCresha, who is to my closest right, LaCresha Van. So I'll go ahead, I'll let them introduce themselves. Latesha, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am currently a director at a domestic violence shelter where we serve women and children. I have a background in business leadership and currently obtaining a master's in organizational management. Although I've been in leadership for about 17 years, I specifically work with victims of domestic violence or at-risk youth. So I'm happy to be here today to kind of talk about the effects of trauma and emotions, and trauma, how trauma impacts emotions today with you guys.
Well,
so thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, and thank you so much. And we appreciate you, working in the acts of service of others. That means a lot to the community, and especially for our corporate sponsors and donors, and to know that as well. So, and then we have LaCresha. LaCresha, tell us a little bit about you and what did you do?
Thank you for having me. Well, I have over 6 years experience working in nonprofit, working with the homeless population. Okay. I currently work with homeless youth ages 18 to 24. Okay. I have a background in criminal justice, and I currently hold a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. Okay. So I spend a lot of time empowering young women and equipping them with the tools to learn how to manage their emotions and other life skills that are needed to prevent homelessness in the future.
Mm-hmm. Right. Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. That's deep. Mm-hmm. And and I've been there before, and it's literally like a apartment building, so it's like self-sufficient for them.
Yes. Totally independent. We teach life skills once a week, and then they are assisted with case management to help with all those other pieces. For example, if they need assistance with food, clothing, mental health resources, and things of that nature. Because what I do find is that, the holistic approach is what helps with sustainability. So if you can attack the emotional, physical, mental, and sometimes spiritual, depending on that youth's belief system, then they can have a well-rounded view of themselves as they transition into independence on their own.
Right. And you know what? You mentioned two things that stick out. I wasn't gonna touch on the lateral, but you brought it up. But it's important for people to know that emotions in the spiritual talk is one of the same, actually. And then Latesha, you work for Safe Haven, so it's a shelter. What type of what is your audience? Okay. Can you kind of give us a background?
So, of course, domestic violence is prevalent in all socioeconomic backgrounds, all ethnicities. Primarily, we see a combination of African American, Caucasian, Hispanic populations. The age ranges. We serve clients 0 to adulthood. Moms and their children, and like I said, we can house up to 72 women and children. Once a client is fleeing domestic violence, they are able to come into our program, and our goal is empowerment. Of course, if you're familiar with the background or history of domestic violence, oftentimes women are torn down, their self-esteem and self-worth is torn down and ripped apart. So we kind of see them when they're at the beginning stages of trying to start over. And many times they are confused, they don't know where to begin, they're still dealing with the emotional turmoil of the experiences that they've had, which can sometimes hinder success. Yes. So while they're there, they do also receive case management. We do offer clinical services for adults and children. There are adult and children case managers. A big part of our role is making sure that they have the resources to go out and be self-sufficient. One of the challenges that we see is when people are in the beginning stages of those emotional struggles, sometimes seeing success or the end of the journey is non-existent for them. Yeah. We've also seen people who may repeat those cycles. They come in and we may see them for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, sometimes longer. They may leave for a year and they may be back the following year simply because they haven't addressed the emotions and mental impact that those experiences have had. Right.
Mm-hmm. The one thing that that both of you speak about, and one thing I'm a strong component about, because through my adversity and challenges as far as, contracting COVID and having the near-death experience, also having to reach out to y'all to ask y'all for resources because I did not qualify for food stamps, Medicare, and looking to see about getting into a shelter, right? Is that y'all mentioned your demographic is for all. And what I came across is that we all share similar common emotional trauma. Like it does not discriminate is what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Right. And my thing is after, you know, being a career professional and then being an entrepreneur and, you know, dealing with my culture for so long, I realized that it was the culture's emotions that was literally blocking me from being able to get to where I needed to because of a lot of the emotional trauma. And then, you know, childhood trauma and what we call them
Generational curses.
Generational curses. Yes,
Absolutely.
yes. It's true. Okay.
But I'd like to speak to that for a second.
Yes.
So a lot of times when a young lady come in, we try to we go over values because we typically learn like our values are things that our belief system comes from like you said, culture, our grandparents, parents, whoever raised us or whoever we've been around. So we kind of carry what we've been taught, right or wrong, right? And so, yes, when you're young, you don't get to decide what you choose to believe and what you don't. Most times it's told to us, it's taught to us, and we're expected to fulfill it. Well, once you become an adult, you get to decide if this no longer suits you, how do you move forward, right? So we kind of go over those things that you didn't necessarily agree with but wasn't able to say to your parents or to whoever was raising you. And you say like, hey, is this something that I want to still believe in, or is this what I want to apply to my current life right now? Because you get to now this is a new chapter, you get to start over, you get to rewrite your book. And so a lot of times we help, you know, in my role, I help them figure out what their new value systems looks like. And even if they hold some interest in what some of the old values, how do you shape it to who you want to become and what you want to see for your life? Because you get to control that now.
Yep. You know, what I came across, and believe it or not, you know, with the whole discrimination, I had to unlearn, is what you're saying. I had to unlearn, and I learned that things are not what we think they are. And at the same time, I learned to have that empathy and passion for other people and know that not everybody is against me, that there are people that is fighting for me. But what I also learned that in the process of unlearning what I went through, I had to go through the mental. And when I went through the mental aspect of things, because see, this is what happened, and we're gonna talk more about that, is, you know, when you come from a past that is stuck on the past and they relive the past, you carry on those emotions, right? And so what happens is you really don't know how to articulate your emotions. So one of the things that we had reviewed was the movie Inside Out. So there's a movie called Inside Out 1 and Inside Out 2, and it's also PG-13. So I would advise my audience to take time as a family, and this is good for men as well. It pretty much goes into a little girl's life who is expressing the different emotions that she's experiencing through life situations, right? Life situations. And what this will do is it's going to help us to learn more about articulating our emotions. And the one thing that Latesha and LaCresha is sharing with you is that it starts off with your emotions before it becomes a mental health issue and it becomes a mental illness. See, people got to understand and stop putting the stigma or putting the stereotype tagline that everyone has mental health or mental illness. These are three different things. One thing that we can say that is true is that everyone is emotional damage right now. That's what Honore says to me. He's like, emotional damage. And hey, do not take that. That is copyright trademark. He'd be like, emotional damage. And, you know, and I like how he puts that, because at the end of the day, we have not learned how to truly articulate our emotions, and our emotions tie into the spirit being of who we are, and we talk about that blockage, right? So it's very important to understand emotions. Do y'all want to elaborate more about
I agree.
children, because y'all deal with children?
absolutely.
I mean, you're dealing with you dealing with children, so please tell us how adults emotions and what they go through, how it affects the child.
You know what? I think it's funny because that's actually what led me into seeking mental health, being a mental health professional. So I started out in the criminal justice system, and I was working inside of adult jails, and just, seeing some of the things, the mental health things that I was seeing in the jail system. And I thought to myself, like, these adult people were once little people. So how did they get here, right? And so that's what sparked my interest in wanting to work with youth. So I went to the juvenile justice system. And as I was there as a probation officer, I started to talk to some of those young people, and they would say things like, well, this is just how I'm supposed to be. My mom, my uncle, my dad, like, they all sell drugs and they all went to prison. And so what else is going to be, like, why is it going to be different for me? And, that kind of made me feel sad, because it's like, well, you don't have to, just because those things are happening, there are so many other things you could choose to do if you want to do it. But I also realized that you can only see as far as your circle, right? If your entire circle is doing that, then that is as far as you're going to, be able to elevate, unless you find someone else that's going to show you and teach you different. And so that's when I started to get into mental health, like worrying about kids, what is considered safe, because everyone doesn't define safety the same. And working with the 18 to 24-year-old is that's taught me the biggest lesson. So most people think, like, oh, a safe place could be just a nice place to live in, somewhere that you can sleep. But for some individuals, that isn't. Like, in our program, we do give a 2 months grace period, because what we saw is an individual who has lived in chaos for an extended period of time, when they first come into a quiet, clean space, something that they're not used to, that is not safe to them. That is extremely uncomfortable. It's different. It's new. Now they learn with time that this is what safety could look like. You're not being abused, neglected, exploited in any type of way, or taken advantage of, right? But that is a learned skill, right? So what they've learned, most of them have learned how to survive in chaos. So that is normal to them. They've learned how to be safe in those unsafe environments. So a lot of times people say, like, oh, we could just give them a place to live, and that's the solution. Or we could just feed them, and that's the solution. Oh, they can have fresh clothes and nice socks, and that is the solution. But no, it's deeper than that.
Yes.
But it also has to be something that they are willing to do. Like, we can educate all day, which I do believe in planting seeds. We may not see those seeds blossom right away. It might be something that comes up later, which is what we do. We're going to equip you with the tools. You decide when you want to use them. A lot of people go back to what they know, like she was speaking earlier. Latesha was stating earlier that they kind of go back to old habits because they haven't learned new ones.
And they repeat it. Isn't that what you said?
Absolutely.
They repeat it.
Yeah, so you have to, so sometimes it can be difficult working with the youth or just homeless population or someone that's trying to overcome, because we know change takes time. And depending on how long an individual stayed in a situation, they're walking away from everything that they have ever known, all, like you said, the things that they have to unlearn. But if that's all you have ever known for X amount of years, you're 20 years on this earth or 38 years on this earth, can you imagine the difficulties of running into the unknown?
Right.
And I'd like to add, from the perspective that I see, people come into shelter and we often hear, like, oh, why didn't she leave? Oh, she should be able to get on her feet today. And someone may spend 60 days in mass chaos and not taking what we may label as action. They're not looking for jobs. They're not, waking up. They're sleeping all day. Some people are addicted to substances. And that's primarily because they're still in crisis. Yeah. They've changed where they sleep. They have not changed the emotional damage that has occurred in that short time frame. So yes, they're physically safe, but they're not psychologically safe. So people are still operating a little bit about the brain. When we are in fight or flight, our amygdalas are leading. No longer the frontal lobe, which is the part of our brain that makes decisions, thinks rationally. The amygdala holds emotions. It only holds emotions. So it doesn't associate words, it associates feelings. So that's kind of where you see PTSD come from. And so I may be in a new environment, but feel all of these feelings from something that happened to me when I was 5. Also, when you have children who grew up in these unhealthy environments, these are risk factors. If those children don't start getting help, therapy, processing the emotions that they're feeling, if they've never seen healthy interactions between their parents, they've never seen healthy conflict, these are learned behaviors.
Right.
There's a higher risk of them potentially being a victim or potentially being an abuser because they haven't learned how to rationalize emotions, identify emotions. Most people tend to know the common ones such as anger, but there's more to anger.
Yes.
Sadness, but there's a little more to sadness, things like that.
So before we get on to those other topics, because y'all hit on a lot of the topics that we're going to talk about, and that's key, I want to kind of go back to and the reason why is because circle is the synergy and what we stand for, and then the respect us for the youth. And when I say us, meaning the adults, right? We are of middle class, upper middle class, and we're talking post-pandemic, post-COVID for a lot of us. So, but with your experience, this is known history that's been documented for people that are in poverty, or are these people that's coming from upper income households? Can you kind of explain in the youth, or are these people that is in the income bracket, in the federal poverty income bracket?
I would say mental health or lack thereof, to me is I don't think it's based on social class. You do see it a lot more in lower, middle class or impoverished individuals, just because of the limited resources that are available. When you think about those typical households, most of those, well, right now we all know in the African American community, they're being led by single parents.
Yes.
So there's a lot of, parents working, kids kind of being left wherever. So you do see an increase of abandonment issues, issues of maybe not necessarily learning how to handle conflict, because there's no adult around pretty much to guide those things. So you do see it in that sense. But I do think that mental health as a whole could be just learning how to define it, and learning like what tools to use to combat it. I do, and I don't know that I could say that it's only in the lower middle class, because I've seen it in all classes.
In all classes. Yeah. And see, and that's why I wanted to point that out, because I need for corporate America, right? I need for them to understand that we just came out of COVID. And post-pandemic, there's a lot of things that went on in those households. And people dealt with a lot of emotions because they're trapped, right? And they're having to deal with someone else's emotional issues, their children's emotional issues, and they're taking on responsibilities that they never had to take on. And you're talking about 2 years of shutdown. Just think about how people had to get reacclimated, if that's even a word, but I'll just say it. How people had to rejoin society or get back into their life, but the emotional toll that it took. And my thing is when I contracted COVID, I don't think they really understood the emotional toll that I had went through, especially with, it's a good thing that I was just doing. To me, I feel like this, and I tell my audience this. Let me tell you something. There is nothing wrong with going to counseling. There's nothing wrong with going to therapy. There's nothing wrong with a psychiatrist if you have to get on medication, because it's different levels in this. My thing was, yes, I was there because it's self-care for me and because of my job. But like my counselor had told me, you have... she said you're a very high functioning individual. But when the toll of life, the adversity and the challenges came on me, and they did not allow me to seek the medical care that I needed to, my therapist seen, and it's a book out there that's called The Body Keeps the Score. It's a very good book. Get that book. That's what Latesha was talking about. Meaning that your emotions from childhood, when LaCresha was talking about, your emotions from childhood, it follows you. So what ends up happening, if you don't get the help, and I say you, because we are all dealing with something internally. It's just whether or not you choose to get the help. And my thing about it is there's resources out there to help you, like EMDR, emotional transformation therapy. There's the network, spinal analysis, and these things are holistic. They also help. So you got anxiety, guess what? You'll walk out of there, you won't have anxiety no more, and you don't have to worry about focusing on the situation in the area. But I just want to pinpoint that corporate America needs to understand that people are dealing with emotional issues, and they do need those resources. They do need that support to be able to address it, because it's not something that is long term. And just don't throw your employees out the window like they can't be helped or they can't be salvaged, because then you put something else on that person.
Absolutely.
And the mind is so fragile. Like, sure. I'm dealing with COVID. I contracted COVID from my supervisor. And you know, my thing is I didn't know that I was having heart issues until they had until after the fact of them trying to deny me my FMLA.
And I want to speak to, because I'm a manager, so I manage employees, and I've managed employees for 17 years. And the employee before COVID compared to the employee of today, post-COVID, is drastically different. Like, even as a manager, I've had to relearn how to manage, because we're now in a more people-centered culture, where back before COVID, I feel like it was kind of go to work, you sick, pop, take some medicine, go to work, do your job, go home. But now people are, I feel like, how I describe it to my team is, it's kind of like we've been at war. People have lost individuals. People came with broken limbs, and we're expecting you to come back to work and do what you did before the war. And that's impossible. People have lost family members. People, you know, have lost parents to COVID. People have lasting ailments because of COVID. So you can't expect someone to come into work and forget that all of these things have occurred.
Baby, I went, look, and that's why I started this, to be able to have that platform, so that when I go and I speak to corporate America and speak to their employees or speak to their leadership team, they have a better understanding.
Absolutely.
Because my thing about it was, I had a team. In fact, I had a team of 7 people that reported to me, but for this particular time, I had over 40 people that I was overseeing. And I just contracted COVID and literally could breathe, talk, and still was having respiratory issues. And the first thing my therapist points out is, we got to get you taken care of mentally. After the mental, shoot, I had gained like 40 pounds. I got up to like 188 pounds, because yes, I had to go to the mental behavior hospital. And then after coming out of that, the effects of the medication, and because of the weight gain, it caused me to have hernias that caused so much pain that they wanted to cut open. I'm like, you're not gonna cut open on me. Just think, I'm a healthy person. I had a chef. I had a chef. I had a PT. I traveled. I had someone that helped me take care of my son. I had businesses. I had employees that I was taking care of, and I'm the supporter for my family. So my thing was, okay, I'll do this, but now y'all telling me I gotta do surgery. Then to tell me that I can't do surgery because, hey, it's something wrong with your heart.
Right.
Then to find out, hey, you getting ready to die. Like, wow, how much emotions that came up out of that. And my thing about it is, had I not dealt with the emotions, I probably would have had the mental health issues that, if I did not treat the mental health, would have turned into mental illness.
So, and I agree with that. A lot of times, so when you think about the average person, right, or a working class person, a lot of times it is just that they're taking care of a lot of responsibilities, and they can't afford to be off of work, or their insurance is not, paying to get things treated, and so that definitely adds an additional level of stress on a person. But I always want to go back to this model, like, you can't give anything until you could give to yourself first, right? We have to be healthy first, and sometimes that may mean like taking some time off of work, or and I can't, I'm not going to tell anybody, like, everyone is the author of their own story, and they like I say, you get to control the decisions that you make. But anything that we do, even if it's not mental, if you broke your leg today, if you choose to ignore the broken leg, it is probably going to heal incorrectly, and then you're probably going to be walking for, it's going to cause other issues. Our mental health is no different. While there are different types of treatment methods, it still requires consistency and intentionality from the individual. And I think that's the part that people miss. A lot of times people's like, oh, go to therapy, go to do this and go to do that. And you hear a lot of people say, I don't want to do therapy. So I tell my young ladies all the time, that's fine. Then what are you willing to do? Right. Just like if someone tells you have a heart condition, or someone tells you, hey, you're pre-diabetic, if you don't, lose some weight or change what you eat, anything we want to thrive requires some changes. You have to decide which route you choose to take. Our mental health is just as important as our physical health. So if you're involved in toxic environment, you're involved around, you have unhealthy people attached to you, you're at a job that's, you're constantly having panic attacks and you choose to do nothing about it, it is going to negatively impact you in the end. So what do, right? Does that mean quit your job right away? No, because that could create more problems, right? But that I'm always going to tell you to plan your exit. If you know this job is causing you physical ailments, what are your next steps? Let's look at your skills. Let's look at other jobs. Like spend as much energy applying for other things so that you can plan your exit. That way your income isn't negatively impacted, which will create additional stress. I also encourage sleep for people. People don't realize
sleep
that
is important.
Yes,
Oh my goodness.
getting restful sleep and getting enough sleep can solve so many things. And again, even when a person is not ready, because learning to deal with your emotions is hard, especially when your traumatic experiences or your experiences are very detrimental. And the world needs healing. People have experienced some very traumatic things, right? And so, yes, it is hard for someone to say, hey, I'm ready to sit with all of this, especially if they're not open to having a support system like a therapist or a psychiatrist in their corner. So a lot of times, like I tell people, sometimes you may not be ready for that layer, but you can still do some work. Like there's journaling out here, there's exercise, there's learning like how to better eat for a person who may have ADHD and you don't want to take meds. Like let's look at what foods are contributing to some of these extra feelings that you may have. So there's tons of ways and approaches to start the journey, right? Because therapy might not be your first choice. Taking medication might not be your choice, right? So it's like, okay, what do you do about it? Because I also feel like constantly saying what's wrong and I'm depressed and doing nothing about it isn't going to be a solution either.
Correct.
So I want to hit on two things. I want to hit on the map of consciousness, and then I want to hit on the support, because the support system is very important. So I'm going to say this to my audience. Let me tell you something. I got 7 doctors. At any point, I was seeing 10 doctors. I currently see 7 doctors. Not only for the COVID, because I also have the long COVID as well, but as far as my mental, my emotional is very important. And let me tell you something. When you go get that emotional transformation therapy, or you get that EMDR, or you get that network spinal, energy cannot be destroyed. So, and when I say energy, I'm talking about your emotions, because your emotions is an energy, and it pretty much either it's going to alter, or it's going to augment, or it's going to delete the things that you need or you don't need, whatever the case may be. Or you're going to feed in that negativity. In the map of consciousness, it's by David R. Hawkins. So go out there to Google David R. Hawkins, the map of consciousness. If you look at that map, it shows you that red, that yellow, that orange, and then you look to the right, it says destructive energy. That destructive energy is constricting you. When you look at the map of consciousness, what do we see? We see the emotions. Well, if you look at the colors, and let me just say this for the LGBT community, they never took on the rainbow colors. I don't know who put that stigma on them, but let's stop that right now, okay? Because that's not true. Colors are actually healing. They're actually healing. And when you look at the map of consciousness, or even when you go through emotional transformation therapy, them colors have meanings to your situation. Okay, so my thing about it is that there is healing when you get that support. They have those resources. And the other thing and so we talked about the support system, and it's okay. I want people to feel comfortable knowing that it's okay to go to a therapist, because look, I grew up around people that had mental health. So my therapist knew that for me, mental health has never been successful. Why? And now I see why, because I had to go through it through it myself.
Right.
So when I went through it myself, guess what? I learned that it's really not that bad. It's really there to help you, to get you on track, so you don't go into further depression and end up with mental health and end up with long-term mental illness. Because what people don't understand is the mind is so fragile. It's like a hair strand. It can snap at any given time. We hear the stories all the time. I knew that person. What happened? Because they was dealing and suppressing the emotions. So I talked to my man. I'm going to tell you, man, I love y'all. But y'all have got to stop suppressing your emotions.
Well, and also reminding ourselves, like, we are not robots. We are human beings with emotions, right? Things hurt us, no matter the gender. Things hurt us. Things make us sad. Things make us happy. And, like, acknowledging that and doing things with it is important. And like you say, a lot of times avoidance is also a trauma response. Fear could be a trauma response. So a lot of times when even if we recognize the emotions, a lot of times our bodies react to it out of fear, out of avoidance, whatever that may be. And that also can prevent us from, stepping into the tools that are needed to help us, right?
Yes.
And so, like I said, I think the first step is identifying those emotions, putting a name to those things. And sometimes you may have to go back and figure out where it came from. Some people don't have to go that deep, but some people may need to. It just depends on the circumstance. But once you identify those issues or those emotions, and you put a name to it, then the next question you should ask yourself, what do I do with it? Because if the goal is to heal, if the goal is to elevate and move forward, then something has to be done.
Yes.
Well, and then I like to add, I think there's a stigma, especially in Black men, that I've noticed that it's like it's a weakness if someone displays emotions or expresses emotion. But I think that's one of the biggest challenges. Like you said, most people just experience an issue or a circumstance, they don't process emotions out of avoidance. We stay busy, or we feel like it makes us weak. There's a negative stigma, and then there is no assistance. So we end up staying stuck. Like you said, we live around this thing that will follow you through every season. It doesn't go away just because you don't acknowledge it. And it only grows and festers, and like you said, creates deeper anxiety issues, bigger depression issues, and likely some mental health issues if you don't address it. And so I think just these conversations, and even just opening platforms to educate more people about the impact of just processing your emotions, talking to somebody, journaling is an easy step if therapy isn't an idea.
Okay, so guess what we about to do? Because I know we keep talking about emotions, right? And people is probably like, yeah, I feel sad. We talked about fear. But what you don't know, there's resources out there. Not only does David R. Hawkins, he talks about the map of consciousness and some of the emotions. We also go out there and Google is the feeling wheel, and that's what Latesha is holding. And I know that y'all can't see it, but please go out there to Google and type in feeling wheel, the feeling wheel, and she's going to explain the different circles. And go ahead, LaCresha, go ahead and explain it.
Okay, so pretty much it's just in the center of the circle. I know you guys probably can't see it, but in the center of the circle, it has our normal feelings. I'm sorry. Fear, anger, surprise, happy, disgust, and sadness. But on the next level of each category, it kind of breaks it down more. So I'll use anger for example. So if I'm feeling anger, then how does that impact me, right? Sometimes if I'm hurt, it might reflect as anger. If I feel threatened, it might come off as anger. If someone is being hateful towards me, it may make me angry, right? Or I may just experience being mad as a result of me feeling anger. Sometimes I may get aggressive, frustrated, distant, or critical. So a lot of times people just say I'm angry, but we don't really realize how that shows up, right, to other people or to the people that are witnessing it from us. So then it takes it to the third level that kind of breaks it down as to like the feelings that come as a result of being angry. So after someone has made me upset, right? So now I'm going to intentionally hurt this person. And so I later may feel embarrassed, right? So it talks about the emotions that you get back in return for not properly or learning how to properly express your anger. So you may feel embarrassed, devastated, insecure. So if you're listening to these words, what do you think these are creating? If I'm feeling embarrassed, then typically if I don't like feeling embarrassed, then what would that cause me to do the next time I feel anger?
Guess what? Those actions and behaviors. That's why you have addicts, right? And then you have people who have those trauma bonds because they're trauma bond through their emotions. What we're seeing a lot of in our youth when it comes to drugs.
Well, and I'm gonna say that. So people tend to go to drugs as a coping mechanism, right? We consider a negative coping mechanism because normally as we all know, there are things that produces serotonin, or, the happy hormone or things of that nature. So we tend to go to those things. And so, of course, if I go and smoke or get high or whatever the case may be, in that moment, I'm feeling good, right?
Yes.
So I chase that moment. It's not that I'm chasing this drug. I'm chasing the feeling that the drug gives me, which is how most addictions occur. Also, when I think about drugs, it normally, you're numb. Like normally if you're high, you're no longer feeling sad. Or depending on the drug you're using, it can elevate emotions. But most times, some of the things I hear from my youth is that, it just makes me numb. It's LaCresha, I don't have to think. I don't have to think about, what has happened to me. And so you stay that way because it's like, okay, well, if I can keep this feeling going, then I don't ever have to process and sit with all the things that have happened to me. And so can you imagine like having to feel that or wanting to feel that? Like, I just want to be numb because so many bad things have happened to me, so that makes me feel good. And so we work with young people in that manner, and we teach them like there's other things that you can do that can also give you those same feelings, but just in a healthier way. And so again, most people go to what they know. If they haven't been taught anything else, this is what I see, this is what I've experienced, so this is what I'm going to keep doing.
Yes.
Right.
Until you turn.
And and I say, like, for individuals like myself that are high functioning individuals, professionals, we run into adversity issues as well. It's not addiction or anything like that, but we have to seek help as well. Just because you drive, you make this particular income, that means nothing, because what happens is you start abusing your authority in the workplace. You bring those ill emotions in the workplace, and it causes a lot of distension with other people. It brings up all that how can I say it? They may not deal with addiction, but they deal with what we call it, the bullying,
control,
the controlling.
And I even think when you speak of like the workforce,
leadership.
Absolutely. For us, it's like emotional intelligence is big.
Emotional intelligence. That emotional intelligence. That's what Coach Tasha Mac does.
So we talk about like lack of sleep, stress management, not being aware of how those things show up. So as a supervisor, if I don't get adequate rest, if I don't, being a supervisor is challenging. Even working with victims of domestic violence can be challenging. But how do I go empty my cup and have positive things poured into it? Because if I don't, then I can come back to work angry, agitated, have very little patience, and that comes off to employees like irritability. That can be, aggressive communication. It may show up in those ways. So I think it's important. I think all the things that we have spoke about when we're talking about the people that we serve, as we talk about as professionals who may be in corporate America, those things impact us too. Like you said, how do we go fill up our own cups when we are struggling? What do we go home and do? Do we, like you said, do we have therapists? Do we journal? Do we have support networks that may work in similar fields, or where we can go pour into, or have network circles where we can lay out all of our frustrations and walk away with some coping or some new tips on how to manage? Because it does show up as workplace bullying or toxic workplace environments when you don't take care of yourself.
And we're dealing with a lot of that these days, especially with post-pandemic, because we haven't addressed the emotional. For some people, we haven't addressed the mental and the things that cause that and that trigger that.
Yes.
And so now we're dealing with, I'll say, reckless. I ain't gonna call them leaders.
Emotional, unintelligent.
Yes.
Okay,
Dark leaders, yes.
Emotional, unintelligent people.
Yes.
And me
Absolutely.
being certified in emotional intelligence and being a trainer, that's one of the things that I love and I enjoy, going out into businesses, going out into corporate America and teaching their management team about their emotional intelligence, but also actually looking at those assessments.
Yes.
Right? Sometimes I do executive one-on-one coaching. I do coaching in the industry to help people become better leaders.
Absolutely.
Right? I don't consider you a leader until I understand, and know that your people are happy with who you are. Because I've been around good leaders and I've been around some bad leaders. And I can tell you this, there's still good leaders out there. And we applaud you, good leaders, okay? We definitely applaud you. Other thing is,
I would like to say this too. I also think a good leader is a real leader, a truth. Like we are, like even as a leader, you are not, like I said, we're not robots. So you experience emotions, and being able to model what that looks like in a healthy way, or model what that looks like in a healed way.
Right.
I also think that empowers people, the people that you work with, to work in those areas themselves too.
Absolutely.
So I agree with what you said. That you're not a leader unless you can become fully self-aware on all of your own, things and things that you're working through, and model what that looks like to work on it. Like that's human. We are human. So.
And there's also a training that I do, which is situational leadership. The situational leadership teaches you how to use different
methods. Yes, because there's not a one shoe that fits all.
Yes, and if you're going to be leading people, you need to recognize how to adapt to people's
emotional needs, their well-being.
Yeah, because that's very important. I know people say, well, they came here to work. No, that stuff, look, y'all want us to work overtime. Y'all want us to work. There is no work-life balance. Let's just correct that. There is no work-life balance. So you gotta
create
address these situations that we cannot turn off our emotions.
Correct.
Treat us as human beings.
Absolutely.
And that's all we're asking. So to bring this full circle, we talked a little bit about the circles of influence. There's also, go out there and Google a chart out there that breaks down the circles of influence and ensuring that you understand. That's what circles of synergy is about. Is in order for you to reclaim your strength, you need to understand your circles of synergy. LaCresha was talking about, if your job, if it's just not the right fit for you, then come up with that exit plan. The other thing is just don't sit there. I stayed in the situation only because I would not be here today to be able to help other people. And what they did was wrong. What they were doing with taxpayers' money, what they was doing with the military's products and services, it was wrong. So I stayed because I knew that at the end of the day, I was right, but I was not only fighting for myself, I was fighting for people that did not look like me, people that looked like me. Right. I was fighting for our kids' future, for the sake of our country. And so I'm the type of person, I don't have to be called a leader to know that I am a leader, right?
Absolutely.
I don't have to, and I know who I am. Go check out that documentary, okay? I know who I am, so I know why I did what I did. But the circle of influence, we want to end off with that. If you can please just kind of give us some takeaways as far as for our youth, for the mothers, for men, and also for these employers, because they need to understand that sometimes it's not the employee. Sometimes it's your management.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think, like I tell my youth now, like whatever it is you want to do, find somebody that's already doing it and get to know them.
Yes.
Because we can't, like I say, you can't learn from what you don't know or what you haven't saw, what you haven't heard. And so if you surround yourself by people doing the thing, so even if that's someone who has the same diagnosis as you and you found this person and they're actively working towards treatment and thriving in that, right? Or if it's someone who wants to be a content creator and you see them being successful, if you say that's what you want to be and you have no idea where to start, find you someone, because that's where that's where those doors are going to open. So your circle of influence should not be yes people.
Yes.
If everyone that's in your circle is always telling you yes to everything, then that is a problem, because there should always be someone, because that means that they think you're perfect and that doesn't exist, right? So you should always have someone in your
show me the perfect person, please.
So I feel like your circle of influence should be people that's thrusting you past your comfort zone, that's willing to check you with love, when they realize that you're falling off your A game, like, hey, this is not the goal you told me you set for yourself, and the choices you're making do not align. How do we get you back there, right? So your circle of influence should be the ones that's thrusting you towards improvement.
Yes.
Every day, whatever that may be, whatever it looks like. It could be in your mental health, it could be in your employment, it could be just your personal development, whatever it may be. If you're stuck in the same place and everyone around you is doing the same things, something is wrong. Yes.
Red flag. Okay, we on blue, but red flag.
And so I would like to add,
red flag. Go ahead, Latesha.
No. I think one of the biggest things that we focus on when we see victims and children is when they're in shelter, creating safety plans. Are your kids able to identify a safe person outside of their parents? Because sometimes the parents may not be safe.
Right.
Does your children know who they can call if they were in a situation, or if you're not available, or if that child feels like my immediate family isn't a support? I think that's extremely important for kids to know. I also think, as LaCresha pointed to and as you spoke to earlier, if we hang around the same people that's doing the same thing, then we literally are not going to grow.
No.
Did you hear that? Change your circle of influence.
Absolutely.
Leave those friends. Leave that boyfriend that ain't proposed to you. Leave that job that's bringing you all that anxiety and depression.
Absolutely.
Like, leave it behind.
Because
that negative energy is blocking you.
Yes, you're not being challenged. The exposure of hanging around people who are doing something different than you, something that may be better than you're doing it, teaches you, it challenges you to step outside of your comfort zone. It allows you to see something that you may not see if you're sitting outside on your street every day, all day, watching the same people. So I do think educating ourselves, exposing ourselves, reading, going to events that your friends or family may have, especially if you're in a depressed place and you don't necessarily have the energy, just get up and go. That one opportunity may change your trajectory. So I think, just putting yourself in a position to take advantage of opportunities that may not even feel like opportunities. I think about our interactions and the events that we had today. You meet a lot of people, you never know how these individuals will impact your life.
Right.
So putting yourself out there, even if it's just for 5 minutes, it's still a step outside of your comfort zone, and it can challenge you to see things differently and do something different.
Well, I want to remind people that plan your exit. Everything is not I can just leave. We are fully aware of that, right? So if you're not in a safe situation, it may make it more unsafe to just immediately leave. But if you desire to leave, plan your exit. Same with the job. If that is your only source of income and you do not have a savings that could support you, plan your exit. I don't feel that anyone should stay where they don't want to, we're not thriving, where they're not growing. But I also recognize the difficulties or the unsafe space that they could put themselves in when they leave. So plan your exit, no matter what that situation is. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm glad that you brought that up as far as planning your exit, because we're actually getting ready to conclude this podcast. It's been just so informative. Thank you for educating, empowering, enlightening the audience. That exit is so important because I know, as far as with my situation, I stayed on. I could have stayed on if they would have gave me my reasonable accommodations, but unfortunately it was a constructive discharge. Now the thing about it was my doctors kept telling me, so this is what I'm telling you, is nothing wrong going to a therapist. There's nothing wrong with going to a psychiatrist.
Absolutely.
And in this particular situation, I had my cardiologist and he said, Tasha, you're going to die. You're inoperable. Okay? They're not willing to give you reasonable accommodations. They have already told you they're going to remove you. So we gotta move on.
You gotta choose.
We
you
gotta
in
get
that.
you. We gotta get you into therapy.
Yes.
And you know what? I had to surrender. I had to surrender. But the thing about it is, don't get depressed. Don't let anxiety take over. There is hope. Get up, right. There is a strategy. There is another input. There are other opportunities. Look, I'm back out here. If I did it, you can do it. And let me tell you something. That circle of influence is so important. So make sure that you just don't stick around to what you are used to. Unlearn what you were taught from your friends, your family, business association. Unlearn that, okay? Because your circles of synergy, how you start your circle, how you complete your circle is one thing, but how do you sustain your synergy when you need it is very important.
Yes.
We want to thank Latesha and we want to thank LaCresha for joining us as our experts. They are a part of the Circle of Synergy family. And guess what? I hate to tell y'all, but y'all are not like us at all, okay? And this is it, and we appreciate you. You have a great day.
Thank you.